Well, hello everyone in YouTube land. This is your main man Blackfoot, and I hope everyone out there is feeling froggy today. If you're feeling so froggy, please leap over and press that like button. It would be greatly appreciated, as well as that subscribing button and your bell notification to get a notification of my latest video. So, with that being said, let's dive on in. I was watching MIB, and I'm always thinking about the scriptures and how it can to relate to what is going on today. And right here you have a picture on your screen with the advertisement of the MIB. And I was thinking about the scriptures and how they would hit people with that neuralizer to make everybody forget what they just saw with just a press of a button and a flash. And I was thinking about the scripture as here in the Deuteronomy. The Father said that He would make the remembrance of Israel to disappear, to cease from among men. And I was wondering, how would that happen? So as I was watching the movie, it kind of all clicked in. It was already on the back burner of my mind, but, I really didn't want to do the video because basically I wanted to do something else, which is going to be my next video about the Most High breaking bread. And it really kind of pissed me off. This is just a little sidebar because some videos, essays, I really don't want to do because, it gets me upset. And that was one of them. So that's why I'm doing this one. But the next one, I'm going to be talking about how the Most High was breaking bread with us. And we pretty much, messed up. So I digress here. So Men in Black. It is a phenomenal movie. It says a lot. There's a lot of hidden gems that I have seen and trying to put it in relationship to what we are dealing with today. The ceasing among our people, the remembrance among our people, and what it is that I know a lot of us having, they say identity crisis. It's not identity crisis. It is gems that we are putting things together like a piece of a puzzle because we must remember that we was not allowed to read. We was not allowed to get any type of knowledge and information. All of this was by the United States government preventing us, seizing us to get any type of knowledge. They spoon fed us so much crap that we are now rejecting it, just like a crackhead who's going through withdrawal. And that is what we are going through. We are going to withdraw and we are trying to figure things out, in which we are. We're going to put things together like we do. We are resilient people, yet we are a stiff-necked people, but the Most High already knows this. So how did we cease to forget? Through books, through education, through manipulation, all this stuff. Millions of dollars of information to keep us dumb, blind, and whatnot. They had grabbed our women. They have grabbed our men and hit them with the neuralizer of that which is the gun. Torture. You get caught reading a book, you get caught trying to learn. Even the slave master, I believe, who would get punished. So it's basically a complete memory loss. And this is what got me to think about the MIB and when I was looking at this poster here. Now, for those of you, now I'm quite sure many of you, or if you have not played the game of chess, as they said, this is chess and not checkers. And if you could see right there, Pawnee, right? You see the little Pawnee, and if you could see, he's a little bit disfigured and whatnot. He's a little bit cute, but he kind of a little bit of a naive type of character played in the movie, right? But on the chessboard, you got the queen, what they say is the most powerful piece on there because she can move all over the place. But yet and still, you have some people, I have seen some chess players say, the queen is not nothing. You knock her off, that is it. But some experts, I'm not going to say most because I really have not done my due diligence on that, but I have heard people say the most powerful piece on the chessboard is the pawn. You have many pawns and whatnot because the pawn is the only one who can be manipulated into becoming any piece there is. At the end of the game, if your pawn reached the end of the game, it can be transformed to any piece, a rook, a knight, and a queen. You get it back. It can be transformed. You get to choose whatever piece you make it. although it is the slowest, right? One step, well, two steps when you first initiate the game. After that, just one step, and then just go straight, unless you're going to the side to, grab your opponent piece, right? That's the only time you get to go to the left or to the right, when it is taking your opponent piece. But other than that, it's steady, slow and steady, but yet and still at the end of the game, your pawn or your pawnee get to change to anything you want it to be. And that is what I got from that, and there's probably a little bit more of an insight, but that is just my initial understanding of the game here. Men in Black, we can look at that as those peoples, those small hats, all wearing black. But we're going to dive in just a little bit here. So the changing of the mindset here. Our people, slow, stiff-necked. They have become many of things, many names. Black America, Afro America, all type of names. And now we have the latest and greatest new FBA. Fascinating. It is fascinating how that name came about and who are the person who have came up with it. All of this got to do with the manipulation of how this individual is allowed to do these things. And it got me to think about biblically, how our names got changed and how people are allowed to do these things because it's really helping them. The more you change people's name, the more they forget. This is a MIB situation. I'm going to go into a biblical aspect here of it right real quick here. Now, you see it Deuteronomy 32. This is when the Moses via the Most High told him to sing this song here. And as you can go down here, there is many things that it's just kind of heartening, right? But here, verse 26, the Most High said that I'm going to scatter them into the corner. I'm going to make the remembrance of them to cease among them. And it is happening today. We are putting the pieces of the puzzle together, but some of us are slow, some of us are fast, and some of us are not leaning to the left or to the right. Right? But here's a powerful piece here that a lot of us, or a lot of them so-called, individuals who preach, they don't mention this right here, right? 43. And he said, rejoice, O you nations, with his people. In other words, you getting down on them, you spoiling them, you doing all these things to them. For he will avenge the blood of his servants, and he will render vengeance to his adversaries and be merciful unto them and to his people. But he said, rejoice, O you nations, with his people, for he will revenge. So in other words, he's saying that, have your fun, but there is no fun when the rabbit get the gun. You know what I mean? So this is what's happening with these nations and whatnot. We could all see that they are taking our culture. They lying on us. They are bullying us because we don't have the army. Yeah, we have the army, but we don't have the discipline and so on and so forth. So they are basically taking advantage of us. You know what I mean? So the Most High said, yeah, I know what you're doing to my people. And they know that they know what they are doing to us. But yet and still, they are satisfied with it, and they're not stupid. They know that we are up under the gun, and yet still they be like, yeah, you know what? I might as well just get mines before it's too late, and that is what they are doing, right? This is exactly what they are doing. But let me show you something here that when the Most High said, rejoice, O you nations, because in other words, that they are playing the fool and thinking we don't know what is exactly what they are doing. Let me just go back a little bit on the first manipulation of this MIB, the ceasing of the mind here, right? I have covered this before, but I'm just going to just show you once again here. Now, during this time, the kingdom, the uh, southern kingdom, the Assyrians came, right? They snatched a lot of our people up, and uh, they snatched them up. And let me make sure I get everything right here. Okay, here we go. So they snatched them up, and they took them over there to Assyria because the Most High told them, say, hey, listen, you've been hard-headed. Okay, enough is enough. I'm going to send these Assyrians among other nations. But right now, we're talking about the Assyrians. So the Assyrians came and put the smack down on our people, and pretty much uh, put them in bondage and feathers, and they took them out of the land. But yet and still, the Most High have defended his land, and the people was complaining. So the Assyrian king, at this time sent a priest over to show them the way, our culture, our behavior, our way of life and whatnot. So here that, the Most High allow these things, right? This is the first part of it, I believe. And if I digress, if you guys and girls know anything out there before this, please leave a comment in there, right? So here's the first manipulation of the MIB, the ceasing of the removal or the remembrance of its people here. Now here is the Assyrians sending a priest here to teach the false flag Israelites our culture, our way, our mannerism, and so on and so forth, right? So here's this priest teaching them with clothes, how to eat, our manner, the temple, the whole nine. You know what I mean? The imposter. This is the first puppet show. What is going on right here? Now, during the process of time, you had the Assyrians got beat by the make sure I get everything right. The Babylonians, if I'm not mistaken. If I am, please correct me, because I got a lot of things in my mind here. And then here come the Medes and the Persians, right? Now, during the process of time, Ezra, or should I say Zerubbabel, they was the first, but here come Ezra next, right? But they was having problems. So as you can see right here during this timeline here, this is the timeline when they was allowed to go back by the Persians, right? You had Xerxes. I'm going to show him up a little bit right here. But as you can see right here, they was having problems right here in 530:20 right here. And they was, if you just go back and read Ezra, you would see that, they was like, look, Ezra was like, look, you guys you're not like us. And they're like, yeah, we want to build a temple. We want to worship your gods too. And they were like, no, 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 no. You're not like us. You are, as they say, a tether. You're not like us. You somebody different. But they like, no, we've been over here for generations. You got to understand, ladies and gentlemen, look, they've been having children's, and they've been learning their ways and their custom. The whole puppet show. This is what's going on. This is all they know. A new generation of people learning our customs and ways. And so when the originals come up, Ezra and them, they're like, no, no, no. So imagine that. Imagine you've been living a lie in your people for such a long time. You know what I mean? It is kind of hard for them to even break away from that, because they would defend it to the death, probably. You know what I mean? You got a group of people who have been taught a lie. That's the only thing they know. But yet and still, it is their truth. Their lie is their truth from their forefathers. Ain't that something? Right? So during the process of time, afterwards, Ezra, down here at the last part here, he had to clean house. Basically, people was intermarrying with these imposters, and Ezra was like, no, you cannot do this. He got so mad that he even snatched the hair out of his head, because he was like, look, the Most High gave these kings, acknowledgement to send us home. He didn't have to do that, but the Most High had mercy on us to tell these kings, hey, listen, let my people go home and build this temple. And I got a little bit of mercy on them. And Ezra was like, look, y'all still messing up. He got so bad, ladies and gentlemen. He just snatched that hair out of his head, and he told these mixed babies, and like, look, you can't come. And he told the father and the mother, like, listen, you can't bring these mixed babies over here with us because of the bloodline and the tradition. They was worshiping all type of matter. The mother, probably was worshiping this and that, the other. A whole bunch of confusion would have been happening. What was happening. So Ezra said, listen, we cannot have none of this. We can't have none of this confusion, none of this. We got to keep the bloodline pure. This is what the Most High wanted us to do and whatnot. Like, listen, you can be a part of us, but you can't intermingle with us. I mean, just that simple. You're just like you see animals. You don't see a lion humping a tiger. You know what I mean? You don't see that naturally. You don't see a bald eagle humping a pigeon. None of that, right? A bald eagle mess around and eat a pigeon. You see what I'm saying? This is the natural balance of keeping the pedigree among dogs, cats, amphibians. You know what I mean? To keep everything in a natural order, in a natural balance. This is what the Most High wanted to happen. So, Xerxes sent them home, during this time. He was fighting the Greeks, but they don't mention that in the movie 300. I kind of talked about that a little bit, but yeah, you had a MIB going on at this time, and at this time, Zerubbabel and Xerxes and the tribe of Judah, Judah, Benjamin, and half of the Levites and whatnot, they was doing their thing. But you got to understand that those people was like, what the hell with you? We still Israelites too. Nah, what you gonna do about it? Because we've been doing this. They probably got in their mind like, listen, we've been doing this longer before you, and don't even realize that you talking to the originals. You know what I mean? And you got the nerve. They have the nerve to say, no, we are the original. And the people the originals come back home to their original place. They like, no, we don't recognize you. The Assyrian king put us over here, and and our father's father. You get what I mean? It's a whole bunch of confusion that it's in the blood. You know what I mean? It is in the bloodline. And so how could you defend that, when you are taking of the light, when you being erased? Even the so-called Assyrians who was placed over there, they forgot about being Assyrians. Now they're a whole new different breed of people far as their memory is concerned. They got hit with the light. Blink. They got confused. And now you have books written telling their side of the story, right? You have us telling our side of the story. Oh, wow. People are giving birth and being taught with customs and ways and eating. Even when the Maccabees and whatnot, when, what's his name? Hyrcanus, right? When they were fighting the Greeks, he grabbed the Edomites and said, hey, look, you know what? You want to be part of the Jews? The tribe of Judea. They're like, yeah, hell yeah. And they became zealots. And now they out Judah. They became zealots. And the Romans like, yeah, we like you. You took over their stuff, and guess what? We finna bless you with more resources and better weapons and more money, or whatever the case may be. And so the Romans loved them more than the actual tribe of Judea. They got hit with the, you can say the light. This is MIB, the changing of the mind to cease of remembrance. But all in all, the Most High have allowed this. He said it was going to happen. He said he was going to cease the remembrance of Israel. Fascinating story, fascinating. And we could, if you could just read the book and just relax and to, take a deep breath and to see how it got erased. People among generations are trying to put things together, and now you have the new guy, the FBA, Foundational Black Americans. Fascinating. You get a guy just like the priest, whatnot, charismatic. These people bought his books. At the same time, these devils saying, "Yeah, you know what? He's charismatic. Let's let him run with it. Let's see what he's gonna do." They give him a bag of money. He could tell a few jokes, stomp down on these tethers and whatnot. Pretty good at it, which he's got facts, which is good. He punched down on them. You know what? I guess what? I'm finna lead my people. Same thing. We can. You know what? It kind of reminded me of. It kind of reminded me of Martin Luther King. When he got through saying all of that good stuff, he said that, you know what? I believe I am taking my people to a burning house. Now you have this guy here, which have basically bringing about some good stuff. I must agree. Talking about the infiltration of these people while we haven't got reparations, how these tethers are tethering, are co-opting our culture, and America know it. They replaced them. They are all in the Black Caucus, the Congressional Black Caucuses, and they have told America, the politics, that Black Americans we don't need reparations, we don't need this, we don't need that. But at the same time, their people are getting all the goodies and giveaways. You know what I mean? So he have FBA have separated us, or separated. I say us because you know what I mean. And now he's bringing about some type of Majora spirit. Fascinating. You must see how all of this MIB, the erasure, right? We went from black to Afro-American to African-Americans to, Negro, and now we are FBA. How interesting is that? Another cover-up, another byword, deeper into the sauce, get lost in the sauce. And they love it. These people love it. That's why, I believe he is allowed to do what he do. That's neither here nor there. I don't want to go down no conspiracy story. But the conspiracy or the false flag is that you cannot change our name. What it is a generic term. It is a collection of all of that into the Foundation Black America. Sure, it have its merits. Yes, sure, it has its place, but it is not the children of Israel. We are Israel. We have a God, and he gave us our name, and we are going back to that. We're not going forward. We need to go back to that, to the roots, where it all began. And that is where we gather our strength from. That is where we gather our knowledge at. That is where we gather our acknowledgement of the Most High, who is the only one who help us get the hell up out of this mess. You understand me? We are dealing with armies. We are dealing with people. We are dealing with traitors, tethers, backstabbers, swindlers, all from other nations who can be called at a whim to really erase us. We have no ships. We have no planes. We have no bombs. We have none of these sorts of things. You get what I mean? A name, a gathering of a collections of names to ball it up into one of an FBA is not enough, ladies and gentlemen. You are talking about fool's gold. You are talking about the remembrance of a collections of what? Of people? To be called a name? We don't need a name. We need a weapon. We need the Most High. That's what we need. We need to seek his face. The Most High say, if you seek my face. And you know what that means, ladies and gentlemen, to seek my face? In other words, the Most High is saying for you individually and collectively that we need to do the things to pray upon the Most High and then to seek his face. Because we cannot, all his laws, statutes, and commandments are put up. And the only thing we have is a verbal adornment, a verbal appreciation, and a prayer. You know what I mean? Because, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole as far as the, our laws and traditions and everything is put up. Even Hosea said that. He said, what you going to do? Our laws and stuff is put up. The Most High said he has turned his face from us. So the only thing we can do is pray, ladies and gentlemen, and hopefully, that's all we can do, that the Most High hear our prayers and that he come. We don't need another name. We already forgot our name. How you going to forget your name? Our name been erased by these people, and we just, we need to follow the breadcrumbs. That is what we need to do. Follow the breadcrumbs. We don't need no new breadcrumbs. No, that's ass backwards. That's gambling out your ass. That's they say, on the streets. You gambling off of ass. You don't gamble off of ass. You don't create something new. How you gonna create something new when you don't even know the old? The identification marker. To define something. When you don't know something, you need to define it. When you forget something, you need to go back to remind yourself of it. That's why the Father says to remember the old ways. Plenty of times in the book. Read the book. The New Old Testament tells you everything. I don't even know why they call it the Old Testament. It's not the Old Testament. It's called the Book of Remembrance. That's what it's really called. That's what the Father said. Remember the old ways. And we're going to, if you remember the old ways, you're going to remember. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, MIB. Have a good one.